All right, we're live. David, how's it going, man? How are you?
I'm good, Sunny. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
Yeah, happy to have you on. I am Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Today I'm joined by David. And David, where are you calling in from?
San Jose, California.
San Jose. So maybe just to kick us off, do you want to tell people, like, we'll keep it short, like one or two sentences on ML Twist, and then we can get back to the topic maybe in about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay. Sorry, what was the
Do you
question?
want to share like a minute on like what ML Twist is? I
Yes,
don't know, your elevator pitch or
absolutely.
whatever it
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah. So, a minute on ML Twist. Basically, we help companies get their data ready for AI. A lot of people assume they go, hey, step one, get data. Step two, train models. Step three, tune models. Step four, deploy. And that step one can be like 20 different steps inside if you're looking for really high quality data. So, our software automates that step one.
Got it. Super interesting. So David, like I said, I like to start my interviews more just kind of like in terms of what your story is. I was reading about your background and you studied computer science and engineering at UC Davis. By the way, I've been to the campus a few times.
It's
I
a
used
cool
to sell
campus.
robots in a past life, and yeah, UC Davis was one of my customers. So what first pulled you toward computers and tech growing up? Were you always the kid taking things apart, or did that come later?
I was definitely the kid that liked computers. I don't think I got into taking things apart until I actually became an adult and had to fix stuff around the house. But yeah, I would say regular for me. Regular is different for lots of people, but into what GI Joe, He Man, Shira, those types of things. What so I always like. Luckily, my dad had gotten a computer. Our first one that I remember fondly is the Apple IIe. Played a lot of computer games on that, and and then it kind of evolved with the 360, the 460, and all that. When I got to college, I got there as as a chemical engineer, and I'd done pretty well in chemistry in high school, but chemistry had just it was a lot tougher in college, and I was not getting good grades. And the first A I actually got was in this random programming class that they made all chemical engineers take called Fortran. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like
I
very
have.
it's a basic programming language, but I loved it. I aced it, and I was one. And it was funny because all the other chemical engineers are having a hard time with it. So then that kind of inspired me to take another computer programming class on top of my chemical engineering pieces, and that ended up inspiring me to kind of switch majors to computer engineering. That was kind of my I guess more formal start into computer engineering.
Cool. Hey, so again, when I was looking at your past, you described yourself as a self-proclaimed nerd as a kid, right? A fellow nerd here as well. So Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and
Yes,
Dragons, video
yes.
games. So looking back, do you think those hobbies actually trained your brain for how you approach problem solving and data today?
It's funny. I don't know. I You would think so, but then when I got my computer engineering degree, sure, there were a lot of people who were like, the types that came from those concepts, and then there were a lot of people who didn't, right, and who had very other major influences, I guess, in their life. So it's tough to say categorically, yeah, that had an influence. I would say that it is a little bit of a loner lifestyle, or at least it used to be. I hear being a nerd is popular these days, so that's great. So what happens is you end up with a lot of time to yourself, and because computers, I guess anything really, but for me, computers was just so fascinating that definitely gave me time to do weird, cool, techie, hacky things like, oh, I'm gonna install a new motherboard, or whatever people do with computers to kind of like really understand the nuts and bolts of it. I got to do so maybe. Sorry, I guess.
So I was going to ask you, David. Also, you joined DoubleClick, right, through an acquisition. And just, yeah, can you walk me through how you went from engineering to the kind of the business and data side of ad tech? Was that a deliberate pivot, or Did it just happen organically?
Yeah, there's stuff I get to share publicly, and there's like even more subcontext. So the overarching story is I graduated during the dot-com bust, and it was tough to get a gig as a programmer because a lot of people were out of work, who had like 20, 30 years of experience and effectively working for minimum wage. So I ended up doing an experience abroad. I went to France. I got to have a bunch of different jobs. One of them was actually being a bartender for a while, which was really cool in Paris. And I ended up getting a job there, opening up the U.S. market of a company that was kind of like my first professional foray into machine learning. They were building a linguistics model, which at the time was like super ahead of its time, and it was really cool. It was a really cool way to navigate information. From there, I went to New York, got another sales engineering job, actually focused on public sector, which was really interesting, and I guess kind of a precursor to where we are today. And then I made the decision to move to the United Kingdom, and I interviewed with companies that are hiring, and one of them happened to be in ad tech, which at the time was pretty nascent. And they were looking for an engineer. I fit the profile, and I got to work for them. And shortly into that, we got bought by a company called DoubleClick. Fun story that I don't know if it's ever been published. We all got an email saying, "Hey, welcome to DoubleClick," when we're at this other company. But the thing is, the acquisition had not been announced yet. So it's a very weird email to get when you're so just for everyone who assumes that all these acquisitions go smoothly, like, look, there's always some fun stuff that happens during this process. So that was definitely an interesting one. And then we got to be at DoubleClick, which was a fantastic company, and Google acquired them, which kicked off a whole other series of stories because Microsoft, apparently, I think they tried to buy it and they didn't get the acquisition, so they ended up lobbying the Supreme Court, I believe, to try to, or it wasn't the Supreme Court, it's like antitrust. So, like, it's interesting how you get acquired and then things get caught up in antitrust. And there was, I don't think it was just Microsoft, but a bunch of companies that made the case, hey, maybe this acquisition shouldn't happen. And as an employee, you kind of find yourself in this weird limbo of, okay, we're not the company that acquired us, but it's hard to focus on the day-to-day when there's all these other macro things happening. So it was a really interesting story at the time.
And actually, I was curious to ask you, so what was it like being inside the machine at Google? Just like looking at, I think you were a data solutions, a strategic data solutions partner lead.
Something like that, yeah. Titles are very fluid. So officially, I was like an account director at DoubleClick, and then they kind of retitle you again when the acquisition closed. But overall, I was effectively, like, for lack of a better term, I was an account manager, right? Like, we had all of these companies that were using DoubleClick to generate and pass all this ad data backwards and forwards, and they're trying to innovate. One of the cool things about ad tech is a lot of people don't really think about it, but they were some of the earliest innovators when it came to mobile. So mobile ads, mobile video ads, audio ads, streaming ads on the radio. Like there was a lot of innovation in ad tech, and eventually they get these budgets to experiment. So 3D TV, something we don't talk about, or sorry, not 3D, but the ability to have like the TV where it's like, more you're more immersed in that experience, or even in gaming, having ads in gaming. So there's a lot of innovation, experimentation in ad tech. So at my accounts, the companies I got to work with were working on some really cool stuff and innovative stuff, and that really gave me my first taste for data for dashboards, right? And then eventually data for predictive models for how the ads are going to perform.
Fascinating. Let's switch gears a little bit. You've said that about 10 years ago, if someone claimed they had AI, it was almost a red flag, not credible, right? So what was the moment when you realized that the technology had actually caught up to the hype and that machine learning was ready for prime time?
I think the the moment for me was when one of our investors a couple of years ago said you should change your name to AI Twist. So that was one of those. Oh, okay, like that's now having AI in the name is in vogue, and ironically, it's kind of come full circle because if you go to a lot of the conferences today, I've noticed a lot of the speakers are very careful to still call out ML. If you think of things like image recognition, some of the some of the NLP models out there, audio, like there's a lot of machine learning that's happening that just gets thrown into the AI bucket. So yeah, I think for me, it was a couple years ago when somebody told me that. I was like, oh, okay, now it's great. Now it's in vogue to be AI first and shouting it from the rooftops. And I felt like until then, it was a slow burn up for sure. GPT was an amazing bump to the credibility spectrum, but that was kind of my light bulb moment of okay, this is now no longer this is now like something that I think has completely been embraced and in fact expected now.
You've also talked about how data scientists spend up to 80% of their time just preparing data, not actually building models. So when did you like fully grasp how massive that problem was? And did it hit you all at once, or was it more like a gradual thing over your career?
It was a gradual thing. So throughout my career, I got to work at a lot of cool companies. So we talked about DoubleClick, we talked about Google. After Google, I ended up at a company called Market Share. And effectively, I always felt I was sort of a little bit of a glorified data delivery boy for data scientists, right? Market Share got picked, and they were doing predictive analytics for ads and having very solid models for that they were using. They're building effectively linear regression models on top of. That evolved, or that got picked up by Newstar, that carried that, and then eventually got bought by TransUnion. And throughout that career, I made the change to Oracle, where I was a senior director there. And you can imagine that spending a long time focused effectively on like data for data scientists really gives someone an opportunity to get a fairly unique look at the behind the scenes, all the things that go into it, whether it's licensing the data properly, whether it's making sure that you're in line with rules and regulations, whether it's and then what's interesting is you go through all that and you get the data scientists, and then it doesn't stop there, because there was this whole other process of what you delivered was effectively raw data, and that data still needed to go through its own type of processing before it could actually fit within the models that were being built. So yeah, it was very much over time, and you just, it's no fault of one particular group or one particular team. It's just nature of the beast that data is fluid and it even changes. Sometimes you have to go back and restate it and all these things, and that's why data science is such a fascinating career on so many aspects.
So for someone hearing about ML Twist for the first time, you've described it as the refinery that turns oil into high octane fuel for AI. Can you kind of break that down, what your platform actually does, from raw, messy, unstructured data to AI-ready data sets in a way that maybe my 11-year-old or my mom could understand?
Yeah, let me stick with that analogy for a second, right? You've got the companies building the Ferraris that are going around the racetrack. And then you've got the companies that are building that fuel for the Ferraris. In theory, Ferrari knows what needs to go into their car, right? And maybe I'm picking Ferrari, it could be Ford, whoever, right? And I think there's some really cool movies now on all the racing, on the racing history. So what you have is effectively two different disciplines that somewhat overlap. Usually the companies building the cars know the type of fuel that needs to go into their engine, but they're not necessarily the specialists. They're not that they could tell you how it should work. If you gave them enough time, effort, energy, and money, they would probably come up with a fuel refining process to get there. That's not really their core. And there's a couple companies I feel that have really capitalized on that. So the more obvious and talked about one is Scale AI, right? So Scale AI got picked up by Meta at a valuation, or picked up, sorry. Meta did a 49% strategic investment into Scale AI at a valuation of $28 billion. And they put $14 billion of their capital into that. And one would ask, like, hey, Meta probably understood how to get the data ready. Why would they take $14 billion and put it into that versus trying to do it themselves? And the answer was, well, there's lots of different takes, but they probably were trying to do it themselves, just like every other company out there, right? And I think that at its core for the 11-year-old is the crux of it. Is you have companies building the race cars, you have companies building the gas, and just because you can build the gas, if you really want to win the race, realistically, you're probably going to take as much time, talent, and energy as you can focusing on the race car if somebody's got you covered on the gas side. And that is that is a little bit of what we're focused on. So I can go into more details on like why making gas, what goes into that and all that, but at a very high level, I hope that's helpful for the
yeah. That's awesome. I mean, we should definitely do a part 2. I've got a hard stop here in a couple minutes, but maybe help me land the plane, David. Just why does this matter, and where are we 5 years from now?
So it matters because companies that want to win today, whether you're into fast food or you're into toys, and they all know this, like they're going to bring AI in. And the first foray is kind of like chatbots, like, oh, I'm going to have a chatbot read all my instruction manuals. And then somebody asks you how to do that. But then it's going to evolve. It's actually going to evolve into your core product. So all these companies are bringing AI into their core product. And AI, unlike regular software breaks that code, but AI almost always breaks that data. So you're going to have to decide whether you go it alone or whether you decide to use other technology geared towards data prep for AI so that you can spend as much time as you can making sure that your models are doing what they need to. And then, sorry, what was the other part of landing the plane? Oh, where will be in 5 years?
Maybe we'll keep people in suspense for that one.
Okay.
Yeah. But I also had another 15 questions for you, David. This is such an interesting topic. I think a lot of people are really interested. In fact, we have 20 people watching right now live. So, but David, I want to be mindful of your calendar as well. Thank you so much. This was really awesome. And like I said, maybe we can do a part 2 in the coming weeks if you're free again. Yeah.
I would love that. Sunny, great to chat with you. Thank you so much for having me on. Take care.
Awesome.
Cheers. Bye.